Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and if you're new to this series, we built this 5-acre pond over the past year, and it took us several months to get all of the dirt excavated, and we had to bring in several truckloads of clay, and we also built an island, a dock, and got all the structure in place, and then it took a couple of months to get it full of water. After that, we stocked it with a bunch of bait fish, including bluegills and threadfin shad, and not long after that, we stocked it with these little 2-inch aggressive bass. And we're going to be giving you an update on them here in just a minute and showing you how big they've gotten. But before we get into that, it's time to give you an update on our newest bait pond. So if you missed our previous video, we built this pond with the intentions of stocking prawns. And prawns are these shrimp-like creatures that can grow these gigantic claws. But the reason we went with them is because we're not able to stock crawfish in the pond because they can burrow holes in a clay blanket. And these prawns aren't able to do that. But not only that, prawns can be an incredible food source for a largemouth bass. And I only know of a handful of cases where people have stocked them in their bass lake, but some of those have had record-breaking growth rates. So we're excited to see how this one turns out, and today we're going to be adding 5,000 newly hatched prawns into the bait pond. But last week we got a shipment of adults in, and I asked you guys to help me name the biggest male. And Threshold said since he has the biggest arms, name him Popeye. And I have to agree, I like that. So we're going to call the big guy Popeye. So send me your contact info, Threshold. So we're just getting finished filling up the bait pond. And I'm keeping an eye on the water levels. A lot of times when you build a new pond, it'll go through a saturation phase where water's seeping into that clay until everything gets sealed off. And our prawns are coming in later today, but the one thing I'm most worried about is the water temps. So prawns need to live in water that is above 55 degrees. And as you can see here, the bait pond has been measuring just above 60 because we just had a cold front move through. So I decided to have a backup plan B, and I'm going to fill up this 100-gallon stock tank, and we can use heaters if necessary to keep that water temp high enough, but I think most of the cold weather is gone. So we got the stock tank full. It's measuring about 81 degrees, which is perfect for the prawns. And we had a lot of sunshine today, and that brought the pond temp up to about 79 degrees, so I think both of these water sources will be all right. And Milo's bringing us some good news that the prawns have delivered. We got 5,000 newly hatched prawns overnighted out of Florida, and these are called post-larva stage. And when they're first born, they're about 1/8 of an inch long, and in one single growing season, they can become as big as Popeye. So they grow pretty fast. But another interesting fact about prawns is they can only breed in brackish water. So they don't have any problems living in these freshwater ponds. But in order to multiply, they need a mixture of salt and fresh water. So that's some good news. That'll prevent them from overpopulating the 5-acre pond. So the next step is to acclimate them. And just to play it on the safe side, I'm going to put 2,500 in the stock tank and 2,500 in the bait pond until I'm sure that the cold weather's completely gone. All right, we just got the tank ones acclimated. Normally I wouldn't use their same water, but I'm afraid I don't have a net that'll scoop these little guys out. So we're just about to let them swim right on in. And they're off. Now we're releasing other little guys into the bait pond, and it's really hard to see them because of that sandy bottom. They kind of camouflage right in with it. That shows you just how tiny these little guys are. So check this out, guys. There was a thin layer of algae on the side of the holding tank, and as soon as I put these in, they started attacking it like it was their job. So my plans are to feed them these tiny pellets that are really high in protein, but for the first couple of days, it looks like it's going to be hard to compete with that algae. And look at this little guy. He looks like he is just as happy as can be. He's even doing a little selfie for the camera. So Sarah's helping me finish getting the tank set up. We added a couple of aerators just to make sure they have plenty of oxygen, and then we're also going to go in with a heater just in case it cools off at night. So I came back the next day to check on them, and they have made quick work of all that algae. It was pretty cool watching little schools of shrimp swim around eating algae, and I can tell they've already started to get a little bigger. And this is my first time raising prawns, so I'm not 100% sure what types of algae they like to eat, but we got plenty of it down here at the 5-acre pond, so I'm going to go scoop some of it up, drop it in there, and see if they like to eat that pond algae. And then they'll have a choice of protein pellets or the algae. We also have several bait fish hanging out in that algae. If I had to guess, those are probably mosquito fish or either small threadfin shad. And probably the best news of the day, the tiger bass in the pond have started spawning. So I finally found our first bass that was locked in on a bed. I put the GoPro underwater to get some underwater shots of it. and it didn't seem to mind at all. It's more interested in running those little bait fish and other bluegills out of its nest. But that's very exciting, and that means more little baby bass coming in the future. Now it's time to give you a quick update on the wildlife, and look who's finally taken over the Eagle Tower, and that's one of these ospreys. But the one thing that really stands out are the beak, and also check out the claws on this guy. The first thing I noticed is their body's a lot smaller than a bald eagle, even though they still have that big wingspan. Now let's watch them do a little hunting. Since we started fertilizing the pond and the water tent had a little bit more stain to it, the ospreys aren't nearly as accurate on those dive bombs. You can see we got another miss. So another benefit of fertilizing ponds is it helps with those aerial attacks. But the ospreys aren't the only ones. Take a look at who's trying to snag a bluegill one morning. It's the juvenile bald eagle that we probably need to give a name because he's one of the biggest eagles and has started stopping by every day. But I thought that was a really cool shot of him trying to catch one of those bluegills. We got another swing and a miss. And it doesn't matter what aerial attacks are coming, nothing is going to stop those bluegills from snacking on those protein pellets. Alright, so now let's talk about the next project. This is the pipe that we pump water into the pond that goes to our underground well. And initially it ran all the way out there to an underwater wood pile and we had it strapped onto there. Well, over the years, the wind has blown the pipe all the way over here to this tree, and then it makes a U and comes out and it's detached from that wood pile. So I think I'm going to cut the pipe off right here and attach it to that tree and put a 90 on it to where it's shooting straight up in the air. Got some blue heron tracks. Ooh, this water's cold. So one piece of advice for you future pond owners, try to think of every little project you can think of before you fill the pond up with water. It seems like once or twice a week I'm out here working on a new project, and as you would expect, the water complicates things and can make it twice as hard. So I'm just going to route that pipe right through here and then tighten it up. Bluegill feeders just went off. They don't seem to mind me sitting in the pond with them at all. Alright, there's our pipe. You see how it extends out there and curls back around. That could probably work just like that. But I think I'm still going to put a 90 on it. I'll clean this off and shoot it up in there rather than out this way. And there we go. Man, I have to admit I love the way that turned out. So now not only do we have a cool water fountain feature, but it's also putting a ton of oxygen into the water. And with more oxygen, we'll have a healthier pond that can support more fish. And as most of you have probably noticed, we designed the dock to be a focal point of the pond. We wanted to draw as many fish as possible into this area. You can see we got the lily pads, the oak throne, an underwater diffuser, some more lily pads, an island, some Christmas trees, a fish feeder, underwater brush piles, 3 underwater lights, and now we're pumping in that cool oxygenated water. If I was a fish, I would definitely live in this area. And this is my favorite time of year as a pond owner because once we fertilized the pond, that created the algae blooms, and that combined with the warmer water temps brought all of the fish into the shallow parts of the pond so we can see them. And you'll notice we have several bass cruising the banks. They're either looking for bait fish or specking out a spot for their nest and getting ready for the spawn. But I love it because I'm starting to see a lot of activity, including topwater blow-ups. As you guys know, that's my favorite. And these little aggressive tiger bass can't sit by idly when the bait fish swim right by them. So I found this next segment really interesting, and as you guys know, I'm always keeping track of these fish and either watching them or filming them, but this one was a little new to me. So ever since we installed the green lights underwater, it's attracted small bait fish that the bass eat, And then the bluegills will eat the little bugs and moths and mosquitoes that land on the surface. And if you pay close attention, the tiger bass didn't want to get left out of these easy meals. So the bluegills actually trained them to start eating the bugs that were landing on the surface. So not only do the bass want to be the dominant predator underwater, but they've figured out how to enjoy those airborne snacks as well. So here's a few fun clips of something I didn't think I'd see. Bass eating bugs. And it's a good thing the turtle's that big, or else he might have been in trouble.
Hi folks at home. So I'm going to be showing you the duck house. So this is the house that they live in. This is the solar panel. This is the splash pad. This is the garden. This is the water bowl. And you want to watch me cannonball? And this is the control panel. Bye folks at home.
Alright, time to do a little topwater fishing. If we catch one on the frog today, it's going to be the first topwater bass we've caught. So somebody's going to win that first bass in the topwater category. But basically, we're out here tagging the bass. Each time we catch a bass, we scan it to see if it's been tagged already. And if it hadn't, we insert a new tag in it and update the spreadsheet. But I've been noticing a lot of topwater action. Since this weather's warmed up, a lot of the bait fish have moved up here in the shallow areas and are roaming these banks. So perfect opportunity right here late in the evening to catch one on topwater. Ooh, there we go. First topwater bass was a nice one. Man, that's a good fighting fish. Yes, sir. First time he'd probably ever seen a frog right there. Nice one. Got it right there in the side of the mouth. Very nice blow up. Let's go check and see if this guy's tagged. No tag in this one. She is 13 inches long, and her new tag number is 71,258. She's probably over a pound, so let's weigh her. 1.25 pounds. Very nice. So good growth for this one for about a 8 or 9 month old bass. Got it. Hit it just about as soon as it hit the water. I think it's a little guy. Oh, not as little as I thought. Nice one. This one has not been tagged, and it is 0601. Alright, this guy weighs 1.23 pounds. Got a lot of them growing at the same rate. Little guy. Definitely not the same one I caught there yesterday. He does have a little sore spot right there on the bottom of his mouth. Skinny though. We gotta get these fish to eating. And this guy is 7371. He's a little on the skinny side. So now let's take a look at our contest spreadsheet. We're finally starting to get enough data here to make some comparisons. And as you can see, the lengths are increasing and the weights are probably about where they need to be. A tiger bass can grow up to 2 pounds a year. So somewhere between 1.25 pounds and 1.5 pounds is probably average. But we're continuing to fill out this spreadsheet in each video. If you see a letter that doesn't have a name out beside it, leave a comment down below. And if we select your name, we'll tag a bass for you. And that'll get you entered into the contest. And we've got a new winner today of the first fish caught on a frog. So congrats to Harry Hubble. So the sod out here around the new pond is done really good. But my next step is to take care of the slopes before the erosion gets too bad. So we're going to be seeding it today with some brown top millet and bahia grass. And I know all too well it can be tough growing grass on slopes. So today I'm going to be using some seeding mulch, and it basically has some tack. So it'll stick to the side of the slopes and help hold those seeds in place and also trap that moisture in, which will let those seeds sprout even faster. Pretty happy with how this turned out. I'll come back and check on it in a few days and see the results. And then we also did it on the inside area of the pond. So we've had good success with our fertilizer program this spring. It created that nice plankton bloom, and you can see when you look out across the pond and all those threadfin shad are up there at the surface eating. That's exactly what you want, because that's the primary food source for the threadfins, and that plankton creates healthy shad, and healthy shad create very healthy bass. And we're also going to be having a shad spawn soon. Usually the full moon in May triggers that. And we could see those shad populations double or even triple. Now it's time to feed the prawns. And again, we're going in with a high protein pellet from Purina. It's 50% crude protein. And these are the starter pellets that are about as small as you can get them. So I'm putting some in the grassy areas where I think the prawns are going to be hanging out. And it's much easier for me to keep an eye on these up here in the tank. And they've just about wiped all that algae out. So I'll be interested to see if they swap over to the protein pellets next. And one of Oliver's favorite things to do is stroll around the pond and take a nap. As soon as that warm sun hits him, it puts him right to sleep. He's probably dreaming about all those big bass he's going to be catching in the future. So not everything about building ponds is good. There's plenty of bad that comes along with it. But this was a self-inflicted wound. So I was pumping some extra water from the pond into the bait pond, and I left the pump running for a couple hours while I was gone. And we had a failed connection on the adapter that was connecting 2 hoses. And so basically I pumped about 5,000 or 6,000 gallons of water right here on top of the newly sodded spot, and it eroded a big hole in the new dam. A rookie mistake. But we're going to take some leftover clay that we had, I'm going to shovel it over here to this area, and then using this to pack it in. And it's another perfect example of doing things before you add the water, because getting that clay in there at that sloped angle wasn't easy. We'll get that sod laid back in there. And hopefully in a week or two, you won't even be able to tell it happened. And look who's back. The osprey looking for another snack. And now it's time for an update on the baby ducks. They're not so small anymore. And here lately we've been trying to teach them how to fly, and especially fly over to the pond area, because we want that to be their new home. And they're definitely getting out, flying over there every day and starting to enjoy it. Although they do fly back to the pen at night. And for those of you that don't believe in fertilizer, here's a perfect example of how good it works. And we empty the duck water bowls in this area every day, and that area gets none, and look at the major difference. That's pretty incredible. And we probably should have named the 6 ducks, but it's a little too hard to tell them apart. We got 3 boys and 3 girls. And it's fun watching them buzz over you, but my favorite part is the crash landings, because they are not graceful at it at all. And speaking of ducks, we had some more good news. The 2 whistling ducks that came into the pond last year and had 10 baby ducks, but they're back, and hopefully they'll have some more babies this year, because that was one of the success stories last year. because all of the babies were able to survive the predators like the hawks and owls, and eventually got big enough to fly away, and I guess they found their new home somewhere else. And we're doing a water change on Tiger's tank, so we're probably not going to feed him today, but you can tell he's getting big, and hopefully this is one of his last couple of weeks in this tank before he gets upgraded to the 300-gallon tank. Because he's becoming a big boy and is going to quickly outgrow this one. And now it's time to feed Mr. Moby. Alright folks, that is going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along with all the pond builds and wild animals we have out here at the farm. But I hope y'all enjoyed this one, and we will see you all next time.